The List by Patricia Forde, Chapter 11. Number 11. Admit. Tell hard truth. Let in. After John Noah left, Letta found it hard to concentrate on anything. Benjamin was dead. John Noah's words trickled down her spine like icy water. But none of it made sense to Letta. Why had the scavenger not recognized the bag? How had he not known where Benjamin was? Or maybe she didn't want to believe Benjamin was gone forever? I have to stop this and do my work, she told herself sternly. Benjamin is dead. Noah would not lie to me. She sat at her desk and pulled a sheet of paper toward her. The new list needed to be transcribed. Her hand trembled as she picked up the pen. The words on the list looked back at her. Above, except. She wrote carefully, trying to stop the letters from shaking. This was familiar territory, but she couldn't concentrate. Her mind kept replaying the conversation with Noah, and she knew she couldn't stay focused. Noah wouldn't lie, but maybe the scavenger would? If Benjamin was alive, didn't she owe it to him to investigate things further? What if Noah wasn't telling the truth? She shook her head. How could she even think that? She had to be careful. Ever since she had crossed the line and taken Marlowe in, she had strayed further from everything she believed in. She had to accept what Noah said. Accept it. But she couldn't. She knew she couldn't rest until she talked to Noah again. She would find an excuse to engage him in conversation and then casually ask him. She got up and grabbed her coat. She opened the back door. A gust of wind hit her in the face, and she gasped. The temperature had dropped, and there was a distinct feeling of winter in the air. She pulled her coat closer to her and set off toward the hill to Noah's house. As she walked, her mind was racing. So much had happened in a few days. She had hidden a desecrator. She had spoken to them. She had heard the music, seen the painting. If John Noah found out, she would be banished. And yet, in her heart, she did not believe that the desecrators were the enemy. Surely, there was a way they could all live together? But there was such a chasm between the world they saw and the one John Noah had seen before the melting. Could the two ever come together? There was no word on the list for hope or love. Her heart quickened. Maybe that was where she could start with Noah. She was the wordsmith. She would suggest to him, with respect, that he put some abstracts on the list. Maybe only one at first. Hope. Hope could never be a bad thing, could it? Her heart flooded with it as she hurried through the streets. In the future, come to me with your questions. That was what he had said. She could smell the evening meal cooking as she passed Central Kitchen. Wednesday, onion tart. The sweet smell of the onions made her stomach rumble. She hurried her step, past the tailor and on past the tinsmith's shop, where a battalion of tin buckets stood at attention on the path outside. As she passed the roundhouse, a group of gaffers was standing, as if waiting for something. Their eyes followed her as she headed up Noah's Hill, but they said nothing. The climb seemed longer this time, her mind racing with ideas, rehearsing the conversation she would have with Noah when she met him. Hope. Just one word. Then, over time, they could add others. Excitement coursed through her. This is what she was meant to do. All through history, wordsmiths had helped form the world. They were called other things, writers, journalists, but they had all worked with words and knew the power of words. At the gate, she stopped to catch her breath. Overhead, a gull screeched as she walked up to the door. She knocked twice and waited. Amelia Dear opened it. Come in, she said, as though Letta's appearance was the most normal thing in the world. Letta stood and looked up at the tall woman. I want to see John Noah, please, she said. Amelia nodded. Of course, she said. John is in a meeting, but would you like to wait? Letta nodded. Thank you, she said. Amelia turned and started down the long corridor. Letta followed her. As soon as Amelia started to walk, Letta could hear the wheeze from her lungs, sucking the air in and delivering it back under pressure. Amelia stopped at a door halfway along the passage. She opened it, and Letta stepped into a small room. There was a window at one end and a bench against the wall. Opposite the bench was a chair. The place felt cold and inhospitable. Letta shivered. Sit, Amelia said, pointing to the bench. Letta sat. Amelia stood for a second, the husky wheeze getting stronger, and then she started to cough, a terrible hacking noise. Letta looked up, alarmed. Letta didn't know what to do. Should she help her? Gradually the coughing subsided, but Letta noticed the muscles in the other woman's neck work hard to draw an air. Are you all right? Letta said. Yes, Amelia said, gasping out the word between great sucking breaths, and then she swayed. At first, Letta thought she was imagining it. Then Amelia did it again, and this time Letta noticed how gray and pinched her face was. Amelia put her hand on the wall to steady herself. Her breathing was becoming more labored, a wet, tortured sound coming from her lungs. Letta thought she could see fear in her eyes. She jumped up and took her by the arm. "Sit down," she said, and pushing her into the chair. Amelia sat, great gasps coming from her mouth as she searched for oxygen, her hand like a claw at her breast. There was a tint of blue around her mouth. Letta's own heart was beating so fast she could feel its pulse in her throat. "I'll go get help," Letta said, looking into Amelia's eyes and trying to sound composed, though her thoughts were in chaos. "Try to relax," she said. "I'll find someone." Amelia managed to nod, and Letta could see that speech was beyond her. She turned and ran from the room, down the corridor to where it turned right at the first corner. Letta looked down it hopefully. There was no one. "Hello?" she called, her voice echoing in her ears. She opened the first door she saw, a meeting room, long table, chairs. "Hello?" she called again, and this time she thought she heard something. There was a door at the far side. She tore across the room and opened it. She found the source of the noise right away. A sparrow was trapped inside the room, battering himself against the closed window. Its little wings were flapping helplessly. As Letta watched, it hit the glass one more time and then collapsed onto the sill. Letta turned to leave just as someone spoke in the adjoining room. "I don't want to hear excuses." The voice was low and menacing. "I want results." John Noah. Relief flooded through her. She opened her mouth to call to him, but just then Noah spoke again. "What about the wordsmith? Have you dealt with him?" Letta froze. She closed her mouth. A voice she'd never heard before said, "We dispose of him tomorrow night." "You think that is the solution to everything? I need him here, helping me. The people trust him and are used to taking instructions from him. Don't you think they might wonder where he has gone to? Was he in league with the desecrators? Did you at least find that out?" The other man sighed. "We tried, sir. We took out all his fingernails. We starved him, beat him." "No!" a voice screamed inside Letta's head. He insisted he had nothing to do with them, but that he could not, would not go along with your plan. "Stop," Noah said. "Enough. I don't want to hear about your barbarity. Where is he now?" "In the holding cell if he hasn't died yet." Letta heard Noah sigh. "Take him to the forest then and dispose of him." "Maybe it would be safer to kill him, master?" "No," Noah said. "We do not kill. Nature will take care of those who we need to eliminate. How long can an injured old man survive in the forest? We need not interfere." "We will do it tomorrow night, master." "Are you sure Fearful won't talk?" And before Noah finished his sentence, Letta heard the door to the main room open. "Sir," a woman's voice said, "it's Amelia. She had a bad turn. She can't breathe." Noah jumped to his feet. "Where is she?" His voice was calm, crisp, but Letta could hear fear in it. "This way, sir," the woman said, and Letta heard feet rushing from the room. For a moment, Letta felt as if she had forgotten how to breathe herself. Fragments of conversation she had just heard raced through her head. "We took out all his fingernails." She tried to banish the images from her head. She had to get out of here. Then she could think about it, but her legs wouldn't move. "We took out all his fingernails." She had to get her breathing under control or she was going to throw up. 3 deep breaths, she told herself. 1, 2, 3. She felt a bit steadier. She put her ear to the door. There was no sound. Could the man still be there, still sitting quietly? Slowly she turned the handle. Through the tiny crack in the door she could see the room was empty, the door open. She crept out, afraid to make any noise. She tiptoed across the room. At the far door she stopped and looked tentatively out at the corridor. Nothing. She had to go back to where she had left Amelia, the woman to tell Noah she'd been there. Her head started to pound. She ran along the corridor. She came to the corner and looked back toward the room door. "Letta!" The word was like a gunshot. "Letta?" She turned around to face John Noah. He was frowning at her, a puzzled look in his eyes. "What are you doing here?" "Think. Say something." I was looking for you. I was with Amelia and John Noah put his hand on her shoulder, his eyes full of concern. "You poor child," he said. "You have had a terrible shock. I can see that." Did he know what she had overheard? "You were with Amelia?" She couldn't breathe. Letta could barely get the words out. "She has a breathing disease, my poor Amelia," Noah said. "She has these attacks regularly." "Persuade him. Let him think you know nothing." "I tried to find someone to get help, but I got lost." "It's all right." Noah's voice was soothing, talking to her in the way people spoke to frightened horses. "We have sent for the healer. Amelia will be fine. Now, why do you want to see me?" Letta shook her head. She couldn't do this. She couldn't pretend for another second. This man was a monster. He was so concerned about Amelia, but he had allowed Benjamin to be tortured. She had to get out. "It was nothing," she said. "Nothing important. I have to go. I'll come back another time." Noah looked at her, his sharp eyes boring into her. You sure? He said. Yes, Letta said. Convince him. I hope Amelia's better soon. Thank you, Noah said. You can find your way out. Letta nodded and walked away from him. With every step she thought he would stop her or call the Gavers. At the door she risked a glance over her shoulder. He was gone. She grabbed the door handle and pulled. The fresh air hit her in the face and she breathed it in greedily. She ran toward the gate, opened it, and started down the steps. She had to fight to keep her attention from wandering. She needed to concentrate. She couldn't fall now. She would think when she got home. For now, there were only the steps. She kept her eyes down, putting one foot in front of the other. She almost collided with the healer as she came to the last third of the journey. He stopped when he saw her and stood back to let her pass. Is she still alive? He said. Letta nodded. I think so, she said. He pushed past her then, his heavy cloak brushing against the bare skin of her legs, leaving the smell of musty herbs in his wake. The wind gusted, and Letta felt rain on her face, cold, stinging raindrops. She willed herself to walk on. She had to get home. Benjamin. Benjamin was alive. His name flew above her like a firefly, circling, and then falling into oblivion.